So way back when I was just a little kid, my mom and dad decided to split up. From what I understand now, they were always arguing and just couldn't get their lifestyles to mesh. It sounds like they were pretty different from each other and it just wasn't working out. They both agreed it was for the best to go their separate ways rather than keep fighting and making everyone miserable. Instead of dragging everything through the courts and having a big messy battle, they figured things out on their own. My dad used to travel heaps for his job, so it made sense for me to stay with my mom. He agreed to pay child support to help out. Back then, I didn't really know what was going on, but on my 12th birthday, I finally asked my mom the big question. Why can't we all live together like some of my friends' families? Mom didn't sugarcoat it, she laid it all out straight. Not gonna lie, it was a pretty tough pill to swallow at the time. It hurt knowing that my family wouldn't be like some others. But here I am now, 15 years old, and I've kinda accepted how things are. That was until something new happened. My mom met someone. She started dating this guy named Ben. They dated quietly for a while, and just recently they got engaged. I only met Ben a few months back, and when I found out they'd been together for a year already, it was a bit of a shock. Mom explained that she waited to introduce us because she wanted to be sure about their relationship first. Now they're planning to move in together, and she wanted me to have some time to get used to Ben. To be honest, Ben's not that bad. He can be really fun sometimes, and he seems to know where the line is. He's respectful about the fact that I'm not looking for a new dad, and he doesn't push it. He's cool about keeping things chill between us, which I appreciate. But then, there's his son Jake, who's about my age. We both started at the same high school this year because I transferred to a different school. Even though Jake and I knew each other from our parents, things at school are super awkward. We act like we don't even know each other. I tried breaking the ice a few times, but he wasn't having any of it. He just shut me down every single time. And it's not just with me. He's also pretty cold to my mom. I think he has a hard time seeing her with his dad, especially since his dad was a widow. Maybe he feels like my mom is trying to replace his own mom, who he obviously misses a lot. But whatever his reasons, he keeps his distance from both of us, and it's pretty clear he's not happy about the situation. Honestly, it gets under my skin, especially seeing how hard my mom tries to make him feel welcome. She's always going out of her way to include him and make things nice, but it just doesn't seem to matter to Jake. So yeah, I've started to really dislike the guy, especially when I see all the effort my mom puts in just to get a cold shoulder from him. So it was just another Sunday night and we were all sitting down for dinner, trying to do the usual family thing, you know? That's when Jake drops a bomb out of nowhere. He suddenly announces that he can't move into our house with his dad. Everyone was kind of surprised, so my mom, trying to be understanding, asked him why he didn't want to move in. I mean, our house is pretty big, definitely bigger than theirs, and it's also way closer to school, which you'd think would be a bonus, right? But Jake, he's in his final year of high school and super into his art. He tells us all about how he's dead serious about going to art school after he graduates. He's not just into digital art, he wants to do actual painting, the old school kind. So, he's been using the garage at his place as his personal art studio. There's enough space there because they only have one car and it parks in the driveway. The thing is, if he moves in with us, he wouldn't have any space like that to work on his art. He explained that he needs to build up his portfolio for art school applications, and that means putting in a ton of extra hours, not just what he does at school. He feels like he can't just leave his work there either. He needs to be able to work on it at home. Now here's where it gets nuts. My mom, without even skipping a beat, suggests that Jake could use my room as his art studio. Yeah, you heard that right. My room. And she said it like I'd be totally cool with just giving up my space. I was completely shocked and honestly pretty mad. Why should I have to move out of my room for a guy who doesn't even like us much? Why does he get a bedroom and a studio when I get bumped out of my own space? I didn't waste any time letting everyone know that I wasn't okay with this idea. I straight up said it was unfair. But instead of listening, my mom just shushed me. She told me we'd figure out my situation later. Like seriously? It felt like she was totally ignoring how I felt, just to make Jake happy. So the next morning, I came downstairs totally ready to stand my ground with my mom. I was all set to make it crystal clear that there was no way I was going to give up my room. But before I could even get into it, my mom started telling me how I needed to be more helpful and learn to compromise. She was all like, it's only for a few months. She kept going, explaining that Jake would be heading off to college in about 8 to 9 months, and then everything would go back to normal. Her big solution was for me to move into her private office. She even said she'd put a bed in there for me, and that I could think of the living room and the kitchen as extensions of my own room. I was just standing there, completely floored. How could my own mom think it's okay to have me sleep in her office? And then to just casually suggest that the rest of the house could somehow make up for losing my personal space. I felt like she was totally dismissing my feelings. Here I was, about to be displaced from my room, and she was acting like it was no big deal, all for a guy who hasn't shown us a shred of respect. I wasn't about to let this slide. No way was I going to sit back and watch my life get turned upside down for an entire year. Especially not for someone who doesn't even appreciate what we're doing for him. That's when I decided I needed to loop in my dad. Even though he and my mom aren't together anymore, he still pays child support and always wants to make sure I'm taken care of. I was pretty sure he'd back me up. I gave my dad a call and laid it all out for him. I told him everything, from my mom wanting to kick me out of my room to make space for Jake, to her plan to shove me into her office like it was some kind of easy fix. My dad was really supportive, just like I knew he would be. He listened to the whole story, and by the end of it, he was just as upset as I was. He promised me right there on the phone that I didn't have to worry about a thing. He said he'd have a talk with my mom and help her see how unfair this whole plan was. I felt a lot better after talking to him. It was reassuring to know that he was on my side and ready to step in. It's tough feeling like you're being pushed aside in your own home, but having my dad ready to help fight this battle made a huge difference. Now I just had to wait and see how their conversation would go, hoping that my dad could get through to her and I could keep my room. A few days after I talked to my dad, I had just gotten back from school when I walked into a total storm at home. My mom was there waiting for me, and the moment she saw me, she just lost it. As soon as I stepped in the door, she started going off on me. She was really mad and started yelling about how I had gone behind her back to snitch to my dad. She said I made it sound like I was being abused or something, which wasn't her intention at all. According to her, she's always made sure I had everything I needed, and this was just one time when she needed me to adapt to a new situation for her sake. But from her point of view, I had totally betrayed her. She was furious because my dad had apparently called her up and threatened to take legal action to make sure I was taken care of properly, including having my own room. The whole thing just blew up way bigger than I thought it would, and my mom's reaction was super intense. She felt like I had turned a simple family matter into a huge deal. I was so freaked out by how angry she was and the way she was shouting that I didn't even say anything back. I just turned around, ran to my room, and started crying. It's been rough, and I've been holed up in my room ever since. I don't hate my mom. I mean, she's my mom. But what she said really hurt. It felt like she didn't see how much this was affecting me. It seems like she's trying really hard to make sure Jake, her stepson, feels welcome and liked, maybe even at the cost of how I feel. I feel like I'm being dragged into the middle of her trying to please everyone else. Now I'm sitting here, feeling all mixed up about what's right and what's wrong. I feel guilty for causing trouble, but also upset because I'm being asked to give up so much. It's a mess, and I'm just really confused and sad about the whole thing. I know my mom is trying to do what she thinks is best, but it feels like she's not really seeing how all of this is dumping on me. I'm caught in the middle, trying to figure out how to handle feeling like I'm not as important as making Jake happy. It's just a lot to deal with, and I'm not sure what to do next. Am I the a-hole? Update 1. So, let me tell you what's been going down these past few weeks. Last time we talked, I was kind of freaking out because my mom had decided that her stepson Jake could use my room as his art studio. Yeah, the room where I've lived practically my whole life suddenly wasn't mine anymore. After I told you guys about it, things got even tougher. My mom's words really hit me hard. She wanted me to just deal with it and help out by making space for Jake. I felt so down about not being able to make her happy, I just decided to go along with it. I thought maybe if I showed her I could handle it, things might get better. But honestly, it's been really rough. So here's the setup now. I've been moved out of my room and into my mom's office. That's where I keep my clothes now, like it's some kind of makeshift wardrobe. The kitchen table has become my new study spot, and I sleep on the sofa in the living room. It's not exactly the comfiest bed, and I miss having my own space big time. The whole house feels different, and not in a good way. I absolutely hate living like this. And to top it off, Jake, who totally acts like he owns the place, isn't making things any easier. He walks around like he's the king or something, and it just makes my blood boil. The other day, I bought myself some ice cream, just trying to find a little comfort, you know? And then Jake went and ate all of it. It might sound silly, but that was the last straw for me. Feeling super upset, I called my dad to vent. I just needed someone to talk to, someone who would understand. I ended up crying over the phone, telling him everything that's been going on. He sounded really upset too, hearing about all the stuff I was dealing with. He promised me right then that he was going to take care of everything. I wasn't sure what he meant by that, but I definitely didn't expect what happened next. The following day, out of nowhere, a CPS, Child Protective Services worker, showed up at our house. He started Ben asking me a bunch of questions right there outside our home. My mom was really cautious and didn't let him inside since he didn't have a warrant or anything, but she did let him talk to me. After he left, my mom was fuming. She demanded to know who called CPS. I figured it must have been my dad looking out for me, so I told her that. Now things are super tense at home. My mom took away my phone and told me I'm not allowed to talk to anyone about what's happening. She's really mad, and I'm kind of scared about what's going to happen next. I haven't been able to call my dad or anyone else since she took my phone. Right now, I'm actually using my school's computer to write this because it's the only way I can reach out. I'm really stuck and not sure what to do. I'm just hoping things will calm down soon, but right now, I'm just trying to get through each day. Update 2. So about that whole CPS situation I mentioned last time, it's only gotten more intense. The CPS worker actually came back, and this time he had a warrant to check out the house properly. And there was another surprise. My dad showed up with them. He looked really serious, and when we had a moment to talk, he told me something huge. He said that he was going to legally adopt me so I could live with him. I was totally shocked. I mean, all I want Ben was for him to help sort things out with my mom, not turn our lives into a complete drama show. But now, things are spiraling way out of what I had imagined. The thing is, moving in with my dad isn't as simple as it sounds. He still travels a lot for his job, which means I'd often be at his house by myself. And yeah, I'm old enough to stay alone for a few nights, but it's not just about that. His place is really far from my school, and I just kicked off my sophomore year. There's no way I could just switch schools in the middle of the year. That would mess things up even more. Switching schools would be a nightmare. Everyone's already formed their groups and cliques, and I'd be the new kid, which basically paints a giant target on your back for being left out or picked on. Plus, I might not even get into the classes I want. I could end up stuck with whatever subjects are left, the ones that nobody else wants to take. So, yeah, moving with my dad? Absolutely not a good idea. I tried explaining all this to my dad. I told him straight up that he can't just pull me out of my life like that. I insist, Ben, that I was managing fine, even if it wasn't ideal living out of the office and the living room. But he seemed trapped by the whole situation. He said that once CPS gets involved like this, it's not really up to him anymore. He has to follow through, or it could look bad for both of us. Now I'm stuck praying that CPS doesn't decide to just haul me away from my home. I'm caught in this tug of war between what my dad thinks is rescuing me and the life I'm actually living, which, while not perfect, is still my life. It's crazy stressful, and I feel like no matter what I say, things are moving forward without my control. So, that's where I'm at now. Trying to voice my thoughts in this whole mess, hoping someone will listen and understand that I don't need to be rescued, just support Ben. I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping for the best while preparing for whatever comes next. Update 3. Alright, so finally there's a bit of good news to share amid all the chaos that's been going on. The whole deal with CPS? Well, they didn't find any actual reason to believe I was being abused, which is a huge relief. Plus, my mom let me move back into my old room, which honestly feels like a victory at this point. So here's what went down. The folks over at CPS were trying to make a case that I wasn't living in a stable environment, emotionally speaking. They were saying that the quick changes in my mom's life, like her getting serious with Ben so fast, were throwing me off balance and making things hard for me. But my mom managed to clear the air. She had to go through a psych evaluation, and it actually helped her win the case against the claims. I stood by her the whole time during this mess, which really strengthened her position. I also had a serious chat with my dad. I needed to let him know that he kind of overreacted Ben by bringing in CPS without giving me a heads up. I mean, I was just upset about losing my room, and instead of a simple talk, he went all out and got the whole system involved. Looking back, I kind of feel bad about how I handled everything. I told him I felt like I act Ben like a crybaby, making a mountain out of a molehill, and that he shouldn't always take what I say at face value, especially when I'm super upset. I realize now that a lot of this mess was because I blew things out of proportion. I even went back and apologized to my mom and Ben for all the drama I caused. They didn't really deserve to be dragged through all that, and I feel pretty embarrassed about the whole thing. Now, with all that's happened, I'm just feeling super awkward. I kind of just want to disappear for a bit, like I could just bury myself in a dump and hide because of how embarrassed I am about everything. I know that's not really possible, but it's how I'm feeling. I guess now I'm just hoping to move past all this, lay low, and focus on getting things back to normal. Or as normal as they can be after all this drama. Update 4. It all started a couple of weeks ago. Jake, who's been pretty cool and distant since our parents got together, suddenly changed his tune. But not for the better. It's like he's flipped a switch and decided to make school a nightmare for me. At first, it was just little jabs here and there. Snide comments when he passed me in the hallway, eye rolls and snickers with his friends. Stuff that was annoying, sure, but I figured I could handle it. I just tried to keep my head down and ignore him. But then, it escalated and it got personal. He began targeting me with insults, calling me names, and not just any names, but ones that really got under my skin. He'd wait for me to walk past and then say something loud enough for others to hear, but just quiet enough to make it hard for me to respond without seeming like I was overreacting. It was clever, in a really annoying way. Next, he started spreading rumors about me. This one really caught me off guard. He told a few people that I had a crush on one of the popular guys in our grade, which of course spread like wildfire. By lunchtime, it seemed like everyone was whispering and laughing about it. It was mortifying. I couldn't even look at the guy without feeling my cheeks burn up, and he clearly heard the rumor too, because he kept giving me these weird looks. But Jake didn't stop there. He upped his game even more by encouraging other kids to join in on the bullying. It's like he was the ringleader, and suddenly there were a bunch of kids who thought it was funny to make my life miserable. They'd bump into me on purpose, knock my books out of my hands, and make stupid comments whenever teachers weren't around. It felt like I was living in some sort of bad dream where everyone had turned against me for no reason. Every day, I'd come home feeling lower and lower. I started dreading going to school, something I'd never felt before. I always liked learning, liked being around friends, and even enjoyed some of my classes a lot. But now, walking into school felt like walking into a trap. I reached my breaking point last Thursday. I came home, went straight to my room, and just cried. I couldn't hold it in anymore. The constant tension, the feeling of always needing to watch my back, it was just too much. After I'd calmed down a bit, I decided I needed to tell my mom. She needed to know how bad it was getting. So I went to her. I told her everything, from the names Jake was calling me to the rumors he was spreading and how other kids were treating me. I explained how it was making me feel, how school had become this awful place I hated going to. I hoped she'd understand, maybe even help me figure out what to do. But her response wasn't what I expected. She listened, sure, but she seemed to think it wasn't as serious as I felt it was. She told me, "We're just kids, and kids go through these things. We'll get through this together." It felt like she was brushing it off, like she didn't see how much it was affecting me. She suggested that maybe Jake was just going through a rough time because of the family changes, and that I should be patient with him. Patient? It was tough to digest that advice. How could I be patient when every day felt like a battle? It seemed so unfair. She was asking me to just put up with it, to suffer through it quietly. Feeling unsupported by my mom, I started thinking about other ways I could handle the situation. I considered talking to a teacher or a counselor at school. Maybe they could do something about it. Maybe they'd listen and take it seriously. But then I worried about making things worse. What if it backfired? What if Jake found out I snitched and decided to retaliate? That thought scared me enough to keep me silent a little longer. The next day at school, I tried to keep to myself, hoping it would die down, but it didn't. During lunch, Jake made a show of tripping me in front of everyone. I fell, my food went everywhere, and the laughter that followed was deafening. I was humiliated, hurt, and I felt utterly alone. As I picked myself up, I realized that maybe this wouldn't just go away, that maybe I had to do something more drastic than just hoping for the best. I spent that whole weekend thinking about my options. I could keep trying to avoid Jake, keep trying to stay under the radar, but who was I kidding? That wasn't working. I could talk to a teacher, but then the risks of escalation loomed large. Or I could try talking to Jake directly, try to figure out why he was doing this, but the thought of confronting him was daunting. By Monday, I hadn't made a decision. I was stuck, torn between fear and the desperate hope that maybe it would just stop on its own. But deep down, I knew I couldn't live like this much longer. I had to find a way out, had to find a way to stand up for myself. It was either that, or let this situation crush me. And here I am now, still stuck in this mess, still trying to figure out the best course of action. The weight of the decision is heavy, and the fear of making things worse is paralyzing. But I know I can't just sit back and let this continue. I have to do something. I just wish I knew what the right something was. Update 5. I reached a breaking point with Jake's relentless bullying, which seemed to escalate no matter how much I tried to avoid or ignore him. After dealing with the emotional turmoil for so long and seeing no viable solution for my previous attempts at handling it, especially given my mom's somewhat dismissive response, I felt utterly cornered. That's when I decided it was time to bring my dad into the equation, hoping that maybe he could make a difference. I remember picking up my phone, my hands literally shaking as I dialed my dad's number. I wasn't just nervous about telling him. I was anxious about admitting how powerless I felt. When he answered, I spilled everything. I told him about the names Jake called me, the rumors he spread, and how other students had started treating me differently because of Jake's influence. Dad listened quietly at first, absorbing the gravity of what I was sharing. His silence was a sharp contrast to the chaos I was describing, and it gave me a slight sense of calm just knowing he was there, hearing me out. His response was immediate and firm. He was upset, angrier than I'd heard him in a long time, not at me, but at the situation. He promised he'd be over the next day to talk to Ben and Jake in person. I hung up feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. Relief because help was on the way, and apprehension about the potential fallout of this confrontation. The next day felt like the longest day of my life. I went through my school routine mechanically, my mind constantly wandering to the impending meeting at home. By the time I got back, my stomach was in knots. Dad arrived shortly after, and the atmosphere at home shifted palpably. Mom seemed tense, uncertain about Dad's involvement, while I was just bracing myself for whatever was about to unfold. Dad didn't beat around the bush. Once everyone was gathered, he laid out what I had told him, not just as accusations, but as factual occurrences that needed addressing. Jake tried to brush off the accusations initially, chuckling nervously and looking to Ben for support. But my dad wasn't having any of it. He demanded honesty and accountability. I watched, a mix of awe and fear churning inside me as I stood there by his side, bolstered by his presence but scared of the potential backlash. When confronted directly and unable to find an ally in his dad, Jake's demeanor slowly changed. He dropped the act and admitted to some of the things he had done. He didn't apologize, but the acknowledgement was there, which felt like a small victory in itself. Ben, who had been quiet, finally spoke up. He assured my dad that he would handle the situation and make sure it wouldn't continue. He seemed sincere, but there was a part of me that doubted whether words would translate into action. After they left, Mom confronted me. She was visibly upset, not just about the bullying, but about me bringing Dad into what she considered a family issue that we could handle internally. She felt like I had undermined her by escalating the situation. I tried to explain my perspective, that I felt unsupported and desperate, but it didn't seem to fully resonate with her. The conversation ended with a heavy silence, leaving a rift between us that pained me deeply. Despite the awkwardness at home, the next few days at school showed a noticeable change. Jake kept his distance. The rumors stopped circulating, and the overt bullying ceased. It was as if Dad's intervention had pressed a reset button on Jake's behavior, or at least put him on pause. Classmates who had joined in on the teasing seemed confused by the sudden shift, and gradually stopped their taunts. This newfound peace was both surreal and soothing. I could walk through the halls without tensing up, anticipating the next insult or prank. I found myself able to focus more in class, and even began to rekindle some friendships that had cooled during the peak of the bullying. Reflecting on these events, I realized the immense impact of having someone advocate for me. Dad's intervention was not just about stopping the bullying, it was a demonstration of support that I desperately needed. It taught me the importance of standing up for oneself, but also the critical role of having allies who will stand up with you. Despite the improvement, there's still a part of me that remains on guard, wary that the current calm might be temporary. I'm slowly rebuilding my confidence, trying to regain a sense of normalcy after months of stress. I'm also working on mending the strained relationship with my mom. It's not easy, as emotions have been high and both of our actions have created misunderstandings that need careful navigating. As I continue to navigate these complex family dynamics, I hold on to the hope that this resolution marks a turning point, not just in my relationship with Jake, but also within our blended family structure. The road ahead might still have its bumps, but with my dad's support and a newfound resilience within myself, I feel better equipped to face whatever comes next. It's been a wild ride, and while I'm wary of what the future might hold, I'm also cautiously optimistic. Here's to hoping for more peaceful days and a smoother journey ahead, where I can focus on being a student and a teenager, rather than constantly defending myself against unwarranted attacks. Thanks for sticking with me through this, and here's to stronger, more positive updates in the future. Last update. Firstly, let's talk about the immediate aftermath of my dad's intervention. The bullying ceased almost overnight. Jake stopped all forms of harassment, and the rumors that once echoed through the school hallways vanished. This sudden peace was surreal. After months of dread and anxiety, walking through school felt unusually serene. The absence of whispers, laughs, and pointed fingers was a relief that I soaked in every day. It was as if I had been holding my breath for months, and I could finally breathe again. However, the cessation of bullying didn't immediately dissolve the tension between Jake and me, or the awkwardness at home. There was an unspoken truce between us, a mutual agreement to exist in the same spaces without conflict. But it was fragile. At school, Jake and I navigated our interactions with careful indifference, acknowledging each other's presence only when absolutely necessary, and keeping our communications minimal and neutral. At home, the dynamics were slowly shifting. My mom, initially upset about involving my dad, began to see the positive changes in my demeanor. As weeks turned into months, she initiated a conversation that I had been silently hoping for. One evening, she sat me down and expressed her regret for not having taken more decisive action when I first confided in her about the bullying. She admitted that seeing the transformation in me post-intervention made her realize the depth of my distress and the importance of her role in safeguarding my well-being. This conversation was a balm to the lingering wounds between us. We talked about the need for open communication and mutual support, laying down the foundation for a renewed relationship based on deeper understanding and respect. Ben's role in the family also evolved during this time. He was more present and engaged, not just as my mom's partner, but as a figure of stability in the household. He facilitated a few family activities which, although slightly awkward, helped bridge the gap between Jake and me. These efforts, while subtle, did not go unnoticed. They helped thaw the frostiness that had settled between Jake and me, transforming our reluctant coexistence into a cautious cohabitation. Reflecting on these developments, I've come to appreciate the complexities of family dynamics, especially within a blended family structure. Each member comes with their own experiences, expectations, and emotional baggage. Navigating these differences requires patience, empathy, and an unwavering commitment to finding common ground. The lessons I've learned from these experiences are numerous. I learned the importance of advocacy, of having someone to stand up for you when you feel powerless, and of standing up for yourself when you find your voice. I learned about resilience, the ability to endure adversity and emerge stronger on the other side. But perhaps most importantly, I learned about forgiveness and the power of second chances. Forgiving Jake was not about excusing his actions, but about allowing myself to move forward without the burden of resentment. Looking ahead, I feel a cautious optimism. I am aware that the peace we've achieved is delicate and requires ongoing effort to maintain. I am also conscious of the fact that there might be new challenges as we continue to navigate our shared lives. However, I'm more equipped now to face these challenges, bolstered by the support of my family and the personal strength I have developed. As I close this chapter, I want to extend my gratitude to everyone who has been a part of this journey, my family, friends, and even those of you reading this who have offered words of support. Sharing this experience has been cathartic, and your responses have been a source of comfort and encouragement. Here's to the future, to the lessons that await, and to the hope that the worst of the storms are behind us. Let's move forward with the understanding that while the road may not always be smooth, it is traversable with the right support and the right attitude. Thank you for being part of my story, and here's to writing new, more positive chapters together.